What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be installing rear brake pads and rotors on the 5th gen 4Runner by PowerStop. So in the last video we did the performance brake pads and rotors on the front of the 5th gen 4Runner. We used the PowerStop Extreme Z36 series pads and rotors. I've taken the 5th gen 4Runner out and I've driven it and they are performing really well. So I'm super excited to put the rear pads on. If you don't have the performance PowerStop brake kit, don't worry, you can still follow this tutorial on how to do your brake pads and rotors. It's all the same. There is a few other components I think that the PowerStop includes. But yeah, let's jump into the job. And in the next video, what we'll do is we'll replace our brake fluid. So I'll take you through the whole process of flushing the brake system out. And that is something that you should do every 2 to 3 years or 30 to 40,000 miles. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into installing the rear brake pads and rotors on the 5th gen 4Runner. All right, so this is what I'm using to do my rear brake job. I have the PowerStop Extreme Z6 rear brake kit. This is a nice brake kit. It comes with these cross-drilled and slotted rotors, 4 brake pads, with stainless steel shims on them. Apparently they're a special compound, a carbon fiber compound that's supposed to grip better and provide better braking. You get these stainless steel shims, high temp grease, and some slide bushings here. So really nice kit, comes with everything you need. But you don't need this to do yours. If you just have regular rotors, or even if you resurface yours, you can follow this video along. If you do want to pick up the PowerStop Extreme brakes, I'll leave links in the description to where you can find those with free shipping.
So first thing you're going to want to do is with the vehicle on the ground, you'll want to loosen up the lug nuts. Then you'll want to block your front tires, make sure your e-brake is off, and start jacking up your car. Support the axle with jack stands on each side, and then lower the vehicle. You are now ready to remove your tire. It is always a good practice to use some brake clean and give your brakes a thorough cleaning before starting the job.
All right, so we got the tire off. I apologize. My rotor here and brakes are a little bit dirty. I was doing some off-roading and some mud got on there. Really sticky mud, difficult to get off. So what we're gonna do now is remove these two 17 mil bolts with these slide pins. We'll take those out. We'll be able to remove this part of the caliper. We'll replace the brakes and everything else. We'll put it back together and then we'll just remove this whole part and do the rotors. So let's jump into it.
So with a 17 mil socket on a breaker bar, you want to loosen up 2 of the slide pin bolts and remove these slide pins.
All right, and with those 2 slide pins removed, we should be able just to pull this part of our caliper out. And I'll just rest this on top of the axle. Just be careful that you don't put any strain or kink your brake line. Now we'll take the brake pads out. You might need a flathead screwdriver to get these out and just check for wear. All right, now we'll take one of these brake pads, we'll put it on our caliper like this, and we'll use a C-clamp to compress this piston here.
Slowly with the C-clamp, compress the piston until it is completely flat with the back of the caliper. At this point, you'll be ready to remove the rest of the caliper. Again, use a 17 mil socket on a breaker bar and really pry at these two because they're on there pretty tight.
All right, so here is the caliper piece we just removed. There's some stuff we're gonna replace on this. We're gonna replace these kind of like boots, and then we're also gonna replace these metal shims. So let's do that now. So what I'm gonna use is a flathead screwdriver like this, and I'll just pop these little shims out. Make sure the tab is on the outside. And these kind of have, it kind of comes in this way and they also come in that way. So you almost need to pop it on and then push and pull and clip it over. We'll just start from the back, lock that side down, and then push forward and in. And there it is, it's installed. Looks really nice. Once we get them all in, we'll just put a little bit of grease in here, a little bit of this high temperature grease that they provided by PowerStop. And that will just allow the brake pads to slide in there as the piston pushes them in. So let's replace the rest of these shims though. Great, so we got all of our new shims in. Let's apply a little bit of grease just into these little slide tracks. All right, so we can now start replacing these. So there'll be one that kind of goes all the way through. I believe it's this one here. So what we'll do is just kind of push this part in and we'll just pull it out. There we go. And now we'll slide our new one in. I'm gonna use a large Phillips head screwdriver. You could put a little bit of grease on this just to help it along. All right, and then we'll just push it in. Great. Perfect. And now we have the other one on the other side here. That one just pulls right out. There we go. So we got both those sides done. Now there's a little one here. Mine's in great shape, but you could replace it with this little one that they provide. I'm just gonna leave that. All right, so that is complete and we're ready to put that back on the vehicle. All right, so it is now time to remove the rotor. The problem with mine, and this may happen to you, is that your e-brake assembly is on the inside here. It's an internal drum e-brake assembly. What happens is these two pads push out in here. That can create a bit of a groove in there and then get stuck in that groove. And then you have trouble pulling this out. It won't actually come out. So the remedy to this is there's a little hole here, this little peephole. You want to turn that down to the 6 o'clock position. All right, so I got this little hole here down in the 6 o'clock position. And I used a light and I looked in. And there's a little wheel in there with these little nubs. What you're gonna do is use a flathead screwdriver like this, a small one, go in. You wanna get that wheel and you wanna roll it down. And what that's gonna do, you can hear it, that is gonna disengage that drum in there. It's actually gonna adjust it inwards like this, and then I'll be able to pull this out. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing it down like that, and let's see. There we go. All right, you can see that opening there, that hole. You see that little wheel in there? So that's what I was using my screwdriver on to adjust it down. Of course, we will have to adjust them back out when we get our new rotors on. All right, here's our beautiful replacement rotor. Just gonna spray it with some brake clean. Make sure you do this just to get any residual oil or anything off from the factory. So I have installed these so that that little hole there lines up with the hole on the inside so that I can adjust that parking brake. So let's do that. So I'm gonna be rolling it up now. What I'll probably do is just roll it up until I can't move the rotor, and then I'll back off a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. All right, we are now ready to bolt this part of our caliper back on. So let's do that. And you will torque these bolts to 74 foot-pounds of torque. All right, so when I took the other pads off, what I noticed is that the back pad wore more, and especially at the bottom. So that's where I'm gonna install this little feeler that's supplied by the kit. What happens is when your pad wears down, it hits this little feeler, makes a really annoying squeaking sound, and then you know you need to replace your brakes. So I'll put it on there, and then we'll just slide this into that channel that we kind of like lubed up with that brake grease. All right, so we're ready to put the outside part now of our caliper on with the piston. Here are those two pins we're gonna slide in and torque to 65 foot-pounds of torque. A good thing to do is to put some brake grease on these before we torque them in, so I'll do that now. Also, make sure to grease the outsides of these shims on your brake pad. I have some of my own stuff here, so I'll just put a thin layer on there, and I'll do that on both sides. This will ensure that your brakes function well and don't squeak, and that they also wear properly. So there's that slide pin, get it on there. All right, so we'll slide our caliper back over here, the piston part, and we'll put our newly lubricated slide pins in. It kind of helps to use a flathead screwdriver and just push those black rubber bushings just kind of into place, and just to kind of compress them so you can actually get that outside part over top. And this is a 17 mil. We'll just tighten this up until it's snug, and then we'll torque it down to 65 foot-pounds of torque. You do not want to over tighten these. Great, 65 foot-pounds of torque on the top and the bottom.
Then what you'll do is put your tire back on and torque down your lug nuts to 85 foot-pounds of torque. At this point, you should be ready to brake in your new PowerStop performance brakes. In order to do this, follow the directions on the back of the brake pad box.
All right, so as you see, installing those rear brake pads and rotors on the 5th gen 4Runner is not too difficult. You don't really need a lot of tools. It's just basically a 17 mil socket, breaker bar, torque wrench, and maybe a flathead screwdriver. In the next video, we will go through the process of changing that brake fluid out, so stay tuned for that video. That'll probably come out next week. And if you guys get a chance, please like and subscribe. I hope to come up with a lot more videos, and I always appreciate you guys' support. I hope to see you guys in that next video. Bye now.